morning, all you podlings out there. Welcome to The Broken Brain, your weekly session of mental health and psychotherapy-ness. I am your resident psychotherapist, Dwight Hurst, here to talk to you today. Today's episode of The Broken Brain is a podcast mini.
Podcast Mini is a podcast with a 7.9-inch screen,
In which I will be reviewing an article online.
That's right, it's a Broken Brain article review.
Brilliant. Thank you, DJ Me. I'm going to be talking at you today about an article by Arianna Jarrett. Oh, I don't know. She's on. It came to me through Twitter. Somebody retweeted it. You can look it up. Arianna Jarrett. I'm trying to think if she has her own website. She's a blogger over on Your Tango. She's a relationship expert who works with saving relationships and stuff like that. She's got an article out there called "My Ex Threatened Me with Revenge Porn. Here's How I Stopped Him." You can find the article, by the way, through Google. Just Google Arianna Jarrett, Jarret, revenge porn. It brings up her site and that article. You can also go to dwighthurst.com in the podcast section, and I will put a link to that as well. If you're not familiar with this awful thing that's happening in the world, let me help you to become aware, which is one of the things we do here at The Broken Brain, let you know about horrifying things. Revenge porn, that's a thing. That's a thing that a horrible, douchebaggy, let's be honest, mostly dudes are doing. I actually haven't come across any, or heard any stories of women perpetrating this on dudes. It's all dudes doing it, apparently. At least from what I've heard. Revenge porn is taking any kind of sexualized materials, particularly sexualized photographs that they may have from a relationship, and then they will post it online after a breakup or to try to teach the person, their ex-girlfriend, a lesson of some kind or whatever. It's a horrible, abusive, terrible thing that is being done. Some other names for it: cyber rape or non-consensual pornography. Now you know about this horrible wrinkle in our society and in our world that exists. And so Arianna Jarrett writes about an experience that she had where she had an ex who messaged her, reached out to her somewhere, I don't know where, and said, "I'm going to release these on your work site." Basically, I'm going to put this on your business page on Facebook, is what it said. This is the way that some of these jackasses will roll, is that they like to come back around at some point and say, "Oh, you didn't let me control you enough while we were together." A lot of these individuals are very controlling individuals. And they say, "Well, I'm going to use this. I'm not only going to embarrass you, I want to really hurt your career. I'm going to really hurt your social relationships, try to really damage your life." So we're going beyond just embarrassment here. One of the things I actually really like about this article is that it goes beyond the basic safety protocol of just don't ever take a nudie selfie of yourself. That is advice, certainly, and that if you follow that advice, then it's definitely more difficult for someone to get reverse porn. But one of the things that the author here, she right out of the gate says, "Go ahead, wag your finger at me, tell me I should have known better." But she says, "Just know that I'm not going to apologize, and I do not feel ashamed." She makes the point that as an adult in an adult relationship, she did think about the risks involved in this. At the time, the guy had not revealed himself to be a controlling, narcissistic jerkhole at the time, but that she had thought about this. One of the things that we have to accept is that we live in a world where we document everything. We walk around with little mobile video studios in our pockets at all. And so, therefore, we're going to have documented things that we're not used to having. Historically, we never had the option of saying, should I or should I not create these selfies or send these pictures to people. So that is something there. And between consenting adults, this was not something that was done with any youth. Although I will add, I have heard people talk a lot about youth and the way that they use this technology. let's be honest, there's a lot of experimenting that's going to be taking place with young people. They shouldn't. We give them advice not to do it. They're too young to make those decisions. All that is true, blah, 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 blah. But the fact is they are going to experiment with the technology that we have invented and that we as adults have given them, with an internet upload and a video camera everywhere they go. So it's going to happen. We kind of have to deal with this as society. And I think just saying, naughty, naughty, you shouldn't have done that is not sufficient. So this article goes beyond that. It really calls out revenge porn for what it is. Revenge porn is not only morally wrong, as she states here, it is also a very real form of sexual abuse. And this is really true. This is another way for someone to maintain control of a relationship after a relationship has ended. And speaking as someone who works with domestic violence recovery, as I do, that is the sign of an abusive, controlling person. And that is something that they will always do whenever they think they can. If you are in a relationship with a violent or controlling person, or manipulative or narcissistic or in any way abusive, rest assured that when you end that relationship, it does not immediately get better. What happens is it actually becomes a little bit worse. So if you know those people in your life who are with someone who's abusive, emotionally, physically, or sexually abusive, and you scratch your head and say, well, why wouldn't they leave? One of the reasons is because it gets worse before it gets better. And I should say, it gets much better eventually after leaving. But leaving is one of the most dangerous times emotionally and physically, because leaving is when an abuser is likely to do something accelerated from what they've done in the past. That's when the most partner-to-partner homicides take place in abusive relationships, is right at the point of leaving. So it's a point where you really do have to think about safety. Ms. Jarrett also talks about some things that I think are very interesting to know. She talks about how she responded to this. She had not heard of revenge porn before. She responded to this by asking some friends for help, which, by the way, right away, right out of the gate, I think is good advice. Ask people for help. It's always good advice. But particularly when there are things that are embarrassing, we often fail to do that because we don't want someone to know we did a embarrassing thing or that someone has something over us. It's the old school way that blackmailers coerce their victims into giving them money or to giving them power. So she goes through a couple of steps. She gives 7 stages or 7 steps that you can do to protect yourself from becoming a victim of revenge porn. Okay, I'm going to share 2 of those 7 steps with you now. Why 2, you ask? Well, because half of 7 is 3.5, and that just might be awkward. I don't want to stop talking in the middle of one of them. And I don't want you to listen to my review here and not go read this article, because it's a really good article. So I'm only going to share 2 of her 7 tips with you so that you have to go and look at the other 7. Or the other 5. Sorry. This is not a math program. Step the first. First, she does emphasize judgment. Consider your own line of work, stage of life, other things like that before ever giving anybody a picture of yourself, particularly a picture that you wouldn't want to see anywhere else. Once again, I really like that she develops this beyond just the do it or don't do it kind of thing, because I think we often think in extremes, either yes or no, do it or don't do it. That's our answer to everything. And many people find that there is an area in between. I had a colleague of mine who, he always said that we say between black and white, there's a lot of shades of gray. Of course, I'm not trying to talk about the movie that just came out. But he used to always emphasize that if you think of a color wheel, black and white are on a color wheel, but so is every other color. There's lots of different situations that you might find yourself in or that other people you love and care about might find themselves in that might make them open to this. If you've ever had a picture that you wouldn't want to have appearing on your Facebook feed, for example, that would be something that might apply here, even if it's not, technically speaking, a pornographic kind of an image. So she does talk about using good judgment as one of the things that can reduce the chances of finding yourself in this predicament. One of the others that she mentions that I think is really good is knowing about the CCRI.
CCRI stands for Cyber Civil Rights Institute, and they are interested in protecting the rights of individuals online. Their hotline is 844-878-CCRI, or 844-878-2274. And one of the things that is really good to know is that you can call someone if something like this is happening. There's a number that you can call. Being caught in an intolerable situation is very stressful, but it's made even more stressful when we don't know what to do about it. That's the scariest time at all. When we have a plan of some kind, then we start to feel better almost right away.
Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or the DCMA. I believe this varies by state, but the DCMA is basically a law that says that if you create a selfie, you automatically own a copyright to that photo. Even if you text it, email it, send it to other people, the recipient does not own that photo. You do, because you are the author, the creator of it. That is a very useful thing to be aware of when we are talking about this issue. I think so often, once again, shame and kind of sex-negative beliefs will attach to these things, and people say, well, I better not ever talk about it. That's what gives... I better not ever talk about it. I better not ever tell anybody that this is being held over my head. I better just hope that nobody ever knows anything about this ever. You got to understand, though, just like with blackmail, that's what gives the perpetrator of this abusive act power. The more you believe that they have a sword hanging over your head, the more that sword is actually there. The more we can take the shame out of something like this and place the shame where it belongs, on the person who is perpetrating the abuse, the more we can actually deal with this problem. You're going to want to check out a website if you're at all interested in this thing it's from an organization called End Revenge Porn. Their website is actually endrevengeporn, all is one word, .org. endrevengeporn.org. They talk about this issue. They're actually engaging with and dealing with this issue. And like I said, if it's applicable, and actually let me back up, I will say it is applicable for you and or someone in your life to do more with this problem than simply say, oh, naughty, naughty, don't do it. And so it's a good resource to be aware of, because it might be that you never deal with this yourself, but it might also be that you do. It might definitely be that someone that you know or love deals with this at some point. And it's always nicer to have something to say other than just, oh, trust me. I've been in that seat many times where I felt like all I had to say was, oh, and it feels much better to have something else to say. As always on The Broken Brain, we want you to have the best information about psychology and psychotherapy and all the things that are happening out there with treatment of some of the horrible things in the world. Just because the world has horrible things doesn't mean the world is horrible. That's a deep thought that I wanted to close with today. Article is very good. Read it. You're going to love it. You can look it up online, like I said. Just look it up old school, or hop on over to dwighthurst.com in the podcast section. It will be available in a link while this is the current episode. You can listen to all of our podcasts, as always, on dwighthurst.com in the podcast archive section, and the current one in the podcast section. You can also listen to us on iTunes. Make sure to go and give us a rating on iTunes. We need it. We need you. We love you. Love us too? Show us some love on iTunes. If you give us a rating that's good, it helps people to find the show, and it's more likely to come up in some type of a search or whatever, I think, is how it works. That's what they say. So, it must be true. Back at you with more exciting episodes of The Broken Brain. We've got more with listener questions. We also have an episode we're putting together with Rainey Mills, following up after New Orleans. Well, following up after Mardi Gras. She's always in New Orleans. New Orleans is actually a geographic location. It doesn't change. But Mardi Gras, that only happens once a year. Like Christmas. Anyway, after Mardi Gras is over, we're getting together to talk about the masks we wear, psychologically speaking, And we've already had one attempt at that conversation. We had some technical difficulties, but the content was awesome. So we're getting back together again to tape it. It'll be coming out in a few weeks. Looking forward to also having more chances to connect with you on the Twitter. Hop over at BreakABrain on Twitter or email me at dwighthurst@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the show. Let me know what you think you'd like us to talk about. If you're doing something exciting in the world of mental health or aware of something exciting, we want to be excited about it with you. Go out there this week and break your brain around something fun, world. We're glad you're here. I'm glad to connect with you and talk to you. Oh gosh, we're such good friends. Have a great day.